Happened to the Dwemer? Skyrim's records agree on the headline. An entire civilization vanished at once during a tonal experiment beneath Red Mountain, and their cities kept running without them. Primary sources name Kagranak, high priest of tonal architecture, striking the heart of Lorcan with Sunder, Keening, and Wraithguard. Chimer and tribunal accounts diverge on motive, liberation from divine meddling versus theft of divinity, but they place the disappearance at the moment of that strike. Later imperial scholarship adds Numidium, the Dwemer's brass colossus, as a possible amplifier. Treat reality like a chord, play the wrong note, remove the choir. The ruins provide working evidence. Lexicons slot into pedestals to unlock doors and route elevators. Dwarven spiders, spheres, and centurions patrol on timers and reset if kited off route. Pressure plates, tonal locks, and the oculary in Mazulft show a culture that encoded access control and astronomy into instruments, not superstition. In Blackreach, an underground province links towers by lifts that still respond to properly aligned lexicons. Systems endure, operators are gone. Collateral history shows the cost. Snow elves who sought Dwemer protection re-emerged as Falmer, blinded, conditioned, then hostile, turning Dwemer space into a two-species ecosystem that persists in the present. Their camps and cages stand within sight of precision forges and sealed research bays, a before and after preserved inside one facility. Field observations keep pointing back to tone. Resonators collapse when hit with specific shouts, demonstrating frequency as force. Keening remains hazardous without Wraithguard, implying the tools were built for an exact protected procedure. Lexicon-driven mechanisms execute reliably after millennia if given the correct state, which argues for an engineered event rather than random catastrophe. Explanations remain open. Septimus Cygnus argues species distillation, deliberate reduction into a purer state, using an Elder Scroll workflow as his proof path. Tribunal-era texts frame the strike as a metaphysical exchange that elevated Vivek, Almalexia, and Sothasil while erasing the Dwemer. Imperial treatises hedge, correlation is total, mechanism unknown. Operational detail inside Mazulft, Alfthand, and Erkenthand is consistent. Centurions vent steam and return to route. Sphere pods repopulate after delays. Sealed vaults open on lexicon state changes. None of this requires a living Dwemer. That reliability suggests the risk was known and the infrastructure was designed to run unattended. That is the shape the game gives you to hold. A tonal strike on a divine artifact. A sudden change. People gone. Machines obedient. You can ride the lifts, read the lexicons, and hear the resonators answer your voice. You will not meet a Dwemer. Blackreach hides a dragon you have to call. Stand under the Dwemer orb in the silent city, shout at the sphere, and the cavern answers, metal hum, light through seams, then Vulthuryol tears down from the false sky. The setup looks like decoration until it behaves like a device. In the center of Blackreach's city, the ring of towers near the main roadway, a bronze pavilion holds a suspended globe. Falmer don't react to it. Dwarven spiders ignore it. But when a shout hits the metal, the orb rings like a struck bell and throws lines of light. A pause follows, long enough to doubt it worked. Then the ceiling splits with wing noise and a dragon arrives into a place that shouldn't have weather, much less airspace. Vulthuryol fights like a surface dragon that learned to echo. Fire blooms against stone ribs and rolls back as heat. Bite and tail patterns are standard, but sound carries oddly in the chamber, making tells feel farther away than they are. Pillars around the plaza break line of sight for breath attacks. Stairs and upper platforms buy clean two-hit punishes before the turn. The name fits the setting, Dark Overlord in the old tongue, but the behavior is straightforward. Bait the head dip, roll into the jaw, strike twice, back off before the wing sweep. The secret is in the input, not the damage numbers. Any shout will wake the orb, though unrelenting force is the one most players test first. The mechanism implies tonal logic the Dwemer liked elsewhere. Sound as key, resonance as command. Nothing on the HUD flags a special encounter, no quest points you there. The hardware is the hint, a resonator built into a city that has no sky calls, something that lives above it anyway. Details around the plaza make the call practical. Enemy density is low on the pavilion if you've cleared the immediate Falmer patrols. Dwarven automata rarely path onto the exact floor where the fight starts. Staying near the globe keeps the arena readable. Wide circles for breath, short diagonals for head punishes, stairs for resets when aggression pulls you off rhythm. If you need cover, the tower bases block line attacks and force the dragon into vertical flames you can dash under. The reward confirms the summon wasn't flavor. Vulthuryol leaves a soul, bones, and scales like any named dragon. The game treats it as a real fight, not a trick. What's different is the route to it. No word wall to mark the place, no corpse with a note, only a bell-shaped object that acts like a test of attention. If you never think to shout inside a city, you never meet the dragon sleeping above it. Blackreach already feels like a thesis. Bioluminescent stars, Dwemer towers, an underworld built to behave like an overworld. Vulthuryol is the cleanest proof. The Dwemer mounted a sky instrument in a cave, and the world still listens. Call the note, and a dragon arrives. Ignore it, and the city remains quiet, its secret intact. Karstaag is a boss you assemble. Find his skull in Solstheim's glacial cave, carry it to the ruined hall of Castle Karstaag, and set it on the ice throne. The room darkens, a blizzard coils in place, and the frost giant's specter takes the challenge. The pieces lie far apart to make the legend feel earned. The skull sits on a nest of ice inside the cave, past reeklings and wet stone, easy to miss among drifted snow. The throne waits in a shattered keep at the island's northwest edge, ribs of frozen masonry framing a seat built for something larger than a troll. No quest arrow ties them together. Locals speak the name in passing, the spaces do the rest. Summoning is ceremony, not menu. Place the skull and step back. Wind becomes a wall, loose snow lifts into a spiral, then horns, antlers, and a mass of ice-white bone assemble in midair. Karstaag doesn't speak. He advances, and the room starts erasing your health in waves. His kit explains the myth. Base level sits near the hard cap, with resistances that blunt most status tricks, and a frost aura that ticks while you think. Melee swings carry giant knockback, the stomp flings you even through blocks, the blizzard he casts fills the arena with whiteout bursts that punish any attempt to turtle. Trying to face tank becomes a loading screen. The fight favors preparation and ground control. Resist frost and fire potions change the math. A flame Atronak keeps safe pressure from range while you circle. Slow time gives windows to land power attacks without eating the follow-up sweep. Become Aetherial can blank a blizzard pulse or buy a heal. Marked for death ticks under his resistances if applied early. Stay mobile, use the broken archways for brief line breaks, and take damage on the head turn after the stomp, not during the wind-up. 2 hits, reposition, greed loses to drift. Weapon choice matters less than discipline. Great swords and warhammers need charge timings you can protect with shouts. Bows let you kite but invite the blizzard if you linger. Destruction shines only with stacked magicka and potions, and even then the frost resistance taxes you. Summons soak knockback and keep Karstaag's face pointed away from you. They also buy time for poison ticks or enchanted burn to work. If you must block, do it at the edge of his range, so the knockback throws you into space, not into a wall. Defeat resolves the legend with a limited boon. Karstaag leaves no loot table worth the risk, but you gain the summon Karstaag power, usable only 3 times and only outdoors. Each call brings a storm and a brief ally strong enough to distort ordinary fights, a reminder that you woke something Solstheim had learned to live without. The throne remains, quiet again, the skull gone. Most players never see the encounter because no NPC walks you through it. The island whispers a name, a cave hides a skull, a ruin holds a seat, the rest is on you. Put bone to throne and a myth keeps its appointment. Leave them separate and Karstaag stays a rumor in the snow. A single amulet becomes 3 curses. Archmage Gauldur is murdered by his sons, Mikrul, Jurgen, Sigdis, and the king breaks the relic, hides each fragment in a different barrow, and orders their names erased. The legend says, the unrest ends only when the amulet is whole again. The trail starts with ink, not combat. A copy of Lost Legends surfaces in taverns and keeps, summarizing King Harold's decree and the vanished brothers. In Folgunthur, the scholar Dinas Valen dies chasing the truth, but his journal survives. It lists what the book only hints: 3 fragments, 3 tombs, 1 place to mend them, Reachwater Rock. His notes replace rumor with coordinates. Each son guards his peace with a personality you can read from the room. Mikrul lies in Folgunthur amid a field of Draugr that wake on his cue. The fight is crowd control first, then the Lord. His drop, the Gauldur Black Blade, drains health with each swing, greed in weapon form. Jurek waits under Sarthal, frozen in stasis by an ancient ward the college has just disturbed. Here the myth touches main plot lines as Tolfdir joins, breaking the seal so Jurek can move and the fragment can change hands. Sigdis haunts Geirmund's hall with copies of himself. The real one is marked only by the right ring and the wrong shout, arrows from shadows, teleport flashes, a lesson in attention before reward. The mechanics stitch the story. Barrows use claw doors keyed to animals carved on their rings. Rotating pillars and oil-slick floors stage traps that punish impatience. Sarcophagi open on timers that align with the boss's yells. None of this needs exposition. You read the space, solve the room, and the fragment feels earned because it responds to care, not to markers. When all 3 pieces rest in your pack, Reachwater Rock converts legend into ritual. An emerald dragon claw opens the outer seal. Alcoves present the brothers in order. Place each fragment on its stand and the shades assemble to contest the right to be remembered. The arena is narrow, the sequence steady. Defeat Sigdis's illusions, silence Mikrul's Draugr, withstand Jurek's warded blasts. Only then does Gauldur's shade appear, not hostile, but waiting for the amulet to be made whole. At the altar the fragments fuse and the unrest collapses. The dead bull, the hall exhales. The reforged Gauldur amulet is modest and elegant, plus 30 health, stamina, and magicka in a single slot. The numbers are the design telling you what the myth already said. The Archmage's strength was breadth, not a trick. Side rewards echo the family. The black blade from Mikrul, a staff from Jurek, a ringed bow game from Sigdis's decoys if you strip the hall clean. But the real finish is architectural. Once the rite is complete, the barrows no longer feel like traps waiting to spring. They feel like rooms with their purpose concluded. What survives of Gauldur after the amulet is a caution. Erasing names did not end the story. Scattering power prolonged the haunting. Only reassembly, book to notes, notes to tombs, fragments to altar, closes the loop. If you listen to the province's paper trail and follow it into stone, the myth resolves exactly as written: 1 relic, 3 sins, 1 quiet ending. Did Olaf One-Eye really capture the dragon Numinex and bind him in Dragon's Reach? The saga says yes. The evidence and the festival keep arguing. Sources split. The song, Olaf and the Dragon, crowns him a hero who battled Numinex, dragged the beast to Whiterun, and caged it in the Jarl's Hall. A rival poem, King Olaf's Verse, by Svafnir, calls him a liar who gilded a cheap victory and ruled like a bully. Solitude's tradition burns Olaf's effigy every year, a mockery made civic ritual. The myth is already doing 2 jobs, nation building and satire. You test the reliability in tending the flames. The Bard's College wants the festival restored. Jarl Elisif demands proof. In the Barrow Dead Men's Respite, Svafnir's ghost leads you to the damaged verse. Back in Solitude, Viarmo must perform it for the court, but lines are missing. You supply the gaps. Choose to flatter Olaf, and the poem becomes state-friendly. Choose to sharpen Svafnir's accusations, and the reading becomes a public scolding. Either way, Elisif approves the festival, and an effigy burns while the city cheers. The quest exposes how a myth survives, by performance, not certainty. Whiterun's hall adds material weight. Dragon's Reach is built like a trap, long approach, elevated throne, roof beams high enough for wings. A bleached dragon skull dominates the rear wall. Its name is never confirmed, but the architecture makes a claim. This room is shaped for a capture. Centuries later, the design proves functional when a shout lures Odaviing to the parapet and the great chains drop. The hall's original purpose might be legend. Its mechanism still works. What could the truth have been? One version holds that Olaf bested a starving, grounded Numinex and parlayed the moment into kingship. Another insists he staged the whole thing, parading a trophy to consolidate power during a loose era of Jarls. A third, closer to Whiterun Pride, accepts the capture and treats the skull as Exhibit A. In all versions, the myth does political labor. It explains why a Jarl's Hall is named for dragons and why solitude keeps the fire alive. The names in the story stay grounded in places you can visit. Deadmen's Respite houses the contentious poem and the bard who paid for it with his life. Bard's College turns your editorial choice into public memory. Solitude lights a pyre for a king the city both condemns and can't stop singing about. Dragon's Reach demonstrates that its beams and chains were never ornamental by holding a living dragon again. No divine vision settles it. The province lets artifacts, architecture, and song carry the debate. So where does the needle land? Skyrim gives you a hall that can jail a dragon, a skull too big to ignore, a festival that mocks the man who claimed the feat, and a performance where your lines decide how Olaf is remembered. The capture may be perfect truth or perfect propaganda. The myth keeps its power because both possibilities fit the rooms you stand in. Who taught the Nords to restrain the voice? Jurgen Windcaller did, after 9 years of silence that turned shouting into prayer. The story begins with defeat. At the Battle of Red Mountain, the tongues go to war and fail. Jurgen withdraws to High Hrothgar and refuses to speak. Years pass in quiet. When he finally breaks the fast, he does not roar. He says a single word that convinces other masters that power without purpose is noise. From that moment, the way of the voice takes form. The Thuum is for the worship of Cairn and the pursuit of understanding, not for ruling jarls or settling borders. The mountain keeps the record in stone more than in books. The 7,000 steps, a pilgrim's climb from Ivarstead to High Hrothgar, carry tablets that outline the doctrine. Each plaque adds one piece. The voice is a gift. Breathing is prayer. Recognition of failure precedes wisdom. Strength without control is emptiness. Snow and wind cut the path. Goats spook and settle. And the inscriptions turn a legend into a rhythm. Read, breathe, step. Inside the hall, restraint becomes a rule you can feel. The greybeards speak rarely. Arngeir carries conversations like a dam holds water, and the others only loose their breath for instruction. Lessons stage control first, force second, unrelenting force in measured syllables, whirlwind sprint in marked lanes, clear skies only as a key to the mountain's weather. The space discourages spectacle, even triumph. The moment a wall's word settles into your bones, arrives under a vow to use it sparingly. The relic that anchors the myth is modest, the horn of Jurgen Windcaller. The greybeards send you to Ustengrav to bring it back, not as treasure, but as proof that you can move with discipline through a place built to test it. The barrow matches the lesson. Gates open to breath and timing. Resonant stones wake to the right pace. Whirlwind sprint solves gaps that greed cannot jump. When you emerge, the horn becomes a credential more than a weapon. Possession says you've learned to aim your will. Jurgen's doctrine doesn't erase conflict, it composes it. In a province that turns shouting into law, he writes a counter-rule. The voice should serve balance, first the wind, then the world, then, if needed, the fight. You can hear the distinction in how High Hrothgar treats language. Power is present, but clipped. Names are precise. Praise goes to patience. Even the view demands it. Skyrim spread below, reachable by a road that refuses to flatten. That is why the myth endures in quiet ways. A staircase that teaches while you climb. A hall where masters barely speak. A horn that proves not violence but focus. Jurgen wins by subtraction. He takes war out of the voice and leaves breath, word, and the room to think before you shout. How did Skyrim's snow elves become the blind Falmer? The trail runs through a promise of refuge, a poisonous diet, and slavery that outlived its masters. Early accounts describe snow elves as choristers of Aetherial, temples in white stone, sung liturgies, and armor like glass. That image survives where the present can't reach. The chantry of Aetherial in the Forgotten Vale. Knight Paladin Gelibor, one of the last uncorrupted snow elves, tends way shrines and speaks plainly. When his people were driven underground, the Dwemer offered safety with conditions the refugees could not refuse. The condition was food. In Dwemer holds, the snow elves were fed on toxic fungi that wrecked vision and weakened will. Once blinded, they were renamed and repurposed. The Dwemer fitted them to tunnels, armed them lightly, and built pens beside kitchens. After the Dwemer vanished, the enslaved remained, adapted to dark, hostile to light, and teaching brutality forward. That is the hinge of the myth. Salvation that rewrites a people. The evidence sits where you fight them. In Mazinchaleft, Alftand, Irkingthand, and other ruins, Falmer camps are grafted onto brass corridors, leather tents stitched from chitin, bone totems, cages, cooking pits, and chorus hatcheries. They breed the chorus, harvest the plates, and wear the shell, an economy born inside captivity. Helmets come down over empty sockets, torches enrage them. Sound matters more than sight. Nothing in these spaces looks improvised, it looks inherited. Names and statues confirm what the camps imply. Deep in Irkingthand, a hall opens on a colossal snow elf effigy, serene features, lifted hands, now facing a society that can no longer see it. The ancient Falmer gear you recover in the Vale carries clean lines and pale enamel, proof that the current chitin aesthetic is not origin but adaptation. Vurthur, Gelibor's brother, shows the fracture from the inside. A high priest turned bitter, his faith curdled under a long grievance, dragging pilgrims into a plan aimed at a god he believes failed him. The past isn't erased, it's weaponized. Mechanics reinforce the story without speeches. Falmer scale poorly to daylight. They set tripwires and oil slicks in dark funnels where their hearing rules. Their archer nests sit in black vents. Their patrols cross by sound. Their alchemy favors venom and drain. In mixed spaces, Dwemer brass above, Falmer leather below, you can watch the takeover pattern. Machine halls stripped, galleries curtained with skin, chorus pits dug into polished floors. The world shows you how a culture moves from him to hiss. The Vale keeps a counterexample alive. Gelibor's rites activate way shrines, cleanse frozen pools, ascend to Oriel's bow, prove that unbroken snow elf practice still exists, just almost nowhere. That contrast is the point. Given one kind of refuge, they became Falmer. Given isolation and discipline, they remained themselves. Two outcomes from one people, separated by food, masters, and time. So the caution lands without a sermon. Accept the wrong help, and you inherit its cost. In Skyrim, that cost is a nation that now lives by touch and toxin under cities it once built for light. The Dwemer are gone. Their decision isn't. The blind are still here, and the tunnels are theirs. A Reachman king can still be woken by a blade. Find Red Eagle's fury, set it in the stone at Rebel's Cairn, and the barrow opens. Inside, the Draugr of Pheolin, Red Eagle, rises to finish the war he lost. The paper trail starts the hunt. The book, The Legend of Red Eagle, turns up in keeps and inns, naming a rebel who swore to save the Reach, fell, and was promised a return when his sword was raised again. The page points west. At Red Eagle Redoubt and the Sundered Towers, forsworn hold the approach. A Briarheart carries the sword called Red Eagle's Fury. It's a leveled fireblade, marked by name so you don't mistake it for scrap. The rite is simple and precise. In Rebel's Cairn, a small cavern off the road south of Karthspire, a carved pedestal accepts only that weapon. Place Fury in the slot, and the door sighs open. Nothing else works. No claw, no key, just the named blade, as if the barrow recognizes a password. Past the gate, a short hall and a round chamber wait with a tall coffin and forsworn offerings set like tribute. Red Eagle's return is fast and aggressive. He stands up as a Draugr Scourge Lord-class foe with a flaming greatsword and a signature use of disarm and unrelenting force. He resists paralysis and fear, leans on sweeping power attacks, and summons lesser Draugr to jam flanks. The room's edge lets you kite. The central sarcophagus blocks breath and shouts. Oil patches on the floor can be ignited for controlled damage if you lure him through. The myth's smoldering prophecy shows up in the equipment change. When Pheolin falls, Red Eagle's fury is gone. In its place lies Red Eagle's bane, the reforged version the legend promises. Same look, stronger function, fire damage plus a bane effect against the undead, turning weaker Draugr for a moment and pushing stronger ones off balance. The game treats it as a fulfillment. The rebel king fights, falls again, and leaves a weapon tuned to the enemies that kept his tomb company. Mechanics reinforce the story without speeches. The forsworn presence at the cairn reads like watch and worship. Offerings and camp loot sit just outside the chamber, implying an ongoing cult. The pedestal only accepts the sword when it has the Fjori name. After the fight, the Bane variant can be returned to reseal the door, resetting the cairn's calm. If you discard the weapon or arrive without it, the barrow stays shut, prophecy idle until the rite is properly done. The route is compact but layered. You trace a book to a redoubt, a named blade to a door to a lord who still answers when called. Nearby landmarks, Karthspire Camp, Skyhaven Temple's Valley, keep the map readable. The cairn itself remains unmarked by questlines unless you've read the legend. Attention, not level, is the key. Red Eagle's tail lands cleanly. A rebel king promised to rise when his sword was raised. The reach preserves the switch, the barrow obeys. Repeat the rite and the flame wakes. Ignore it and the prophecy stays asleep under the hill. Why do impossible locks open in Skyrim? Because one key bends probability, and it belongs to Nocturnal. The skeleton key isn't a tool, it's a conduit. In the hands of a thief, it makes failures rare. In Nocturnal's shrine, it makes a guild prosper. But luck on loan has terms. The trail runs through the thieves' guild's collapse. Jobs go sour. Coin dries up. Gallus is dead. Mercer Frey sits in his chair. And Carlia moves in shadow with proof that the decline started the day Mercer stole the key from the Twilight Sepulchre. In this telling, fortune isn't just mood, it's plumbing. Remove the key from Nocturnal's pedestal, and the flow to Riften slows to a drip. Initiation reframes theft as pact. In Nightingale Hall, Carlia binds you and Brynjolf to Nocturnal as Nightingales. Mask, oath, and the understanding that everything gained by shadow is held on the lady's sufferance. The kit makes the religion tactile. Nightingale armor tuned for silence and evasion. The agent boons, strife for a lifesteal strike. Subterfuge to turn enemies on each other. Stealth to vanish, are small signatures of a larger agreement. Nocturnal's domain isn't brute power, its outcomes tilting by a few degrees until the door yields. The key itself behaves like rumor made real. In practice, it is an unbreakable lockpick that trivializes tumblers and turns master locks into routine. But the legend is bigger. The key is the keystone of the Ebonmere, a portal in the sepulchre that connects Tamriel to Nocturnal's Evergloam. When it sits in its shrine, luck favors those who work under her sign. When it's pocketed, the favor thins. The guild's condition across the quest line mirrors the key's location. Returning it is a pilgrimage called the Pilgrim's Path, and the route feels like an answer to how the key works. The sepulchre tests discipline instead of dexterity. A hall of pitch dark where brightness is a trap. A bridge that appears only by trusting the gloom. A maze of light beams that punish impatience. A final descent past guardian shades who stand watch over their own broken oath. The message is consistent. Fortune follows those who respect the terms. Mercer's end ties the myth to consequence. In Erkingthand, amid Dwemer ruin and Falmer watchers, he uses the stolen luck to push an impossible heist. The eyes of the Falmer, one step too far. The cavern floods. The guild lives. The key goes back. In Riften, jobs warm again. Side contracts turn up more often. Merchants open their purses. No speech declares the change. The city just breathes easier. You do not keep the skeleton key. That's the price that makes the story credible. Nocturnal grants services, not gifts. A thief who holds the conduit forever stops being a client and starts being a rival. So the ritual closes with you placing the key where it belongs. The reward is quieter. A restored shrine. A guild that runs, and an oath that keeps paying out as long as shadow is honored. So the myth resolves cleanly. Impossible doors open because luck itself is a patron, and the object that focuses it has a rightful home. Return the key and the current resumes. Pocket it and watch fortune thin into static. A sword that grows on betrayal. Mephala's ebony blade is a two-handed katana that becomes stronger only when it kills people who count you as a friend. The blade whispers, you oblige, and its hunger turns into power. The path begins in Whiterun with the whispering door. After the dragon at the western watchtower falls and you reach level 20, a child, Nelkir, Jarl Balgruf's son, mentions a voice behind a sealed door in Dragon's Reach. The voice belongs to Mephala, Daedric prince of secrets and plots. The lock isn't puzzle-coded, it's political. The key rests on either Balgruf or Farengar's secret fire. Take it, quietly or by force, and the door opens to a small, forgotten room. On the table, a black lacquered blade that speaks as you lift it. At first, the ebony blade is underwhelming. It has a built-in absorb health effect that never needs recharging, but its magnitude is low and it cannot be improved at a grindstone in the usual way. Mephala's instruction explains the design. The sword remembers betrayal. Each time you kill an NPC who likes you, someone whose favor you've earned, the blade's absorb effect steps up. 10 betrayals take it to full strength. The enchantment does not consume souls and does not run out. It simply drinks more as its story darkens. The game marks friend broadly, but specifically. Finish a personal quest, invest in a shop, return a lost item, train with a companion. When their dialogue shifts to the warm register, they qualify. The blade refuses strangers. It wants trust violated. That requirement turns a Daedric artifact into a test of your line. You can lure targets to quiet places, pick quarrels, or let the blade stay weak. No journal tracks progress, only the whispers change. Mechanically, the weapon lives in the two-handed family and benefits from those perks. Because the absorb effect scales on betrayal and never drains, it favors aggressive, sustained combat, heavy swings that pay back health even in long fights. It cannot be disenchanted. Smithing won't lift its base damage. Alchemy and fortify gear can push overall output through perked power attacks, but the core identity remains the same. Endless lifesteal, tuned by your choices. The quest's framing keeps Nocturnal-style contracts out of it. This is Mephala's sphere, not luck, but manipulation. Nelkir's involvement underlines the theme. Secrets inside a ruler's house, a god whispering through a child. Whiterun returns to normal once the room is empty. No one mentions the missing key, no guard posts a notice. The only record is what you decide to do next. Most artifacts advertise virtue or direct power. The ebony blade advertises method. It works from the first swing, but it asks you to make it worse. Populate your life with helpers, and you carry a charged weapon. Keep your promises, and you carry a quiet one. Either way, the katana keeps talking, soft, persuasive, reminding you that in Skyrim some myths don't ask to be believed, they ask to be completed. Aetherium isn't a rumor, it's a door that opens when 4 blue shards meet. Read The Aetherium Wars, follow the ghost of Catria into Arkenthams, and a map of Dwemer sites resolves into a single task. Recover the fragments, assemble the crest, wake the hidden forge. The trail rejects guesswork. Arkenthams marks 3 sister sites, Raldbathar, Mzulft Storeroom, and Deepfolk Crossing, each holding a shard locked behind working machinery. Shards can't be smelted, tempered, or disenchanted. They sit in your pack like cold stars until all 4 click together. When they do, a Dwemer device at Beethoft reads the completed Aetherium crest, rotates stone plates, and lowers an elevator that hasn't moved in an age. Below, the forge explains the myth, a cavern of riveted bridges and blue fire hums. A final puzzle ring opens sluices. The forge master, a superheated centurion, rises out of the glow, venting steam heavy enough to stagger. Fire resistance, archery angles from the gantries, and Atronach distractions turn the arena from attrition into control. When the centurion drops, the platform stabilizes, and the forge accepts the crest. Once, the choice is the point. The Dwemer left one use for the impossible alloy, and it becomes one of 3 artifacts. The ethereal crown stores a second standing stone blessing and lets you swap actives by equipping or unequipping, the lover for leveling, the warrior for fights, the lord for defense. For players who build around buffs, it is the rare item that changes how you schedule time. The ethereal shield turns any target you bash ethereal for a few seconds, unable to deal or receive damage. It's crowd control in a block, perfect for peeling a boss from ads, breaking a death loop, or forcing a reset without a shout. The ethereal staff summons a Dwemer spider or sphere from the air on a charge. It is a portable scaling distraction that fits mages and hybrids who want pressure without perk investment in conjuration. You can craft only one. The forge seals after the choice, the blue fires dim, and the elevator returns you to weather. Katria thanks you and moves on. Her journal and bow stay as markers that this was a scholar's problem solved with fieldwork, not prophecy. The lore aligns with the engineering. Dwarven notes speak of city-states united, then at war, over Aetherium's properties, too volatile for ordinary smelters, too potent to share. The shards proved unbreakable, the crest a perfect lock, and the forge a controlled chamber that burns hotter than common magma. Even the dungeon design agrees. Tonal resonators gate progress, steam pistons keep time, bridges hinge open to exact inputs. The Dwemer didn't worship the blue fire, they contained it. Nothing about the rewards reads as decoration. The crown rewrites character planning, the shield gives melee a safe lever, the staff provides independent allies. One myth becomes 3 practical tools, and the province never marks any of it with a quest giver on a street. The evidence is in the heat, the artifact you carry, and a ruined lift that still knows what to do with a perfect crest. 1 relic, 2 doctrines. Mend Azura's star as it was, or darken it into the black star. The choice decides what kind of souls the vessel will hold. The trail begins on a mountain where dusk and dawn touch. At the shrine of Azura, the Dunmer seer Arania Einith speaks of a vision, a star, broken, a mage in Winterhold who knows its wound. In the frozen hearth, the exiled scholar Nellakar names the culprit, Malin Varen, a college master who tried to force human souls into Azura's artifact and cracked it. Varen fled to Ilinalta's deep, a ruin half-drowned in Lake Ilinalta, and died inside his own experiment. Ilinalta's deep is the first proof. Necromancers defend a flooded keep where workbenches sit beside coffins. At the heart, a ruined altar holds the broken star, still bright in pieces. Take it, and both priests claim a right to mend it. Arania insists that only Azura can restore a holy vessel. Nellakar argues for a mortal repair that avoids Daedric strings. The mechanics are simple. Bring it back to the shrine, or hand it to the scholar. The doctrine is not. Restoration is a journey inward either way. Return to Azura and she draws your spirit into the star to purge the stain, an interior of glass plains and starlight where Malin Varen's soul hides behind Atronox. Destroy him, and the vessel seals as Azura's star, a reusable soul gem that accepts only white souls from creatures and beasts. Choose Nellakar, and he performs a similar rite in his chamber. The purge ends with the star becoming the Black Star, a reusable gem that accepts black souls, those of men and myrrh. The implications show up at your workbench. Both forms never break and never need recharging beyond filling. Soul trap an eligible target, then feed the stored energy into an enchantment or a weapons charge. Azura's version aligns with traditional ethics. No sapient souls, steady, infinite utility, against wilderness prey and Atronax. The Black Star changes the economy of power. Bandits, warlocks, and hostile townsfolk charge the gem, supplying grand-level fuel wherever there are people to fight. The world reacts in small ways. Choose Azura, and Arania may travel with you as a follower, a priest whose magic mirrors the prince she serves. Choose Nellakar, and the shrine falls quiet. The Dunmer leaves. Winterhold's scholar keeps his distance, his solution effective but unblessed. Neither path breaks the artifact. Each names the user. The quest's framing keeps the myth clear. Azura is the Prince of Dusk and Dawn, patron of transitions. Mending the star through her consecrates continuity. What was made for starlight returns to starlight. Malin's research shows why it cracked. The star rejected black souls, and the attempt to force them shattered the shell. Nellakar's practical repair accepts the premise Malin wanted, but without worship. It is a mortal rewrite, not a prayer. Nothing else in Skyrim hands you this much authorship over a relic's nature. One climb to a mountain shrine, one drowned ruin, one battle inside a gemstone, and a final decision that changes what the vessel is for. Keep the star white, and it answers beasts and storms. Turn it black, and it answers people. Either way, the glass in your hands holds more than a charge. It holds the doctrine you chose. A spirit haunts a blade, and the blade haunts a crypt. In Frostmere, remove the pale blade from its pedestal, and the pale lady rises to defend it. Return the weapon, and the haunting ends. The approach tells you there's already been a fight. Outside the barrow, the bandit Isa Blackthorn insists she didn't start the bloodshed. Inside, bodies mark a mutiny. Notes on a table name the cause. Rajir dreamed of a woman in the ice and led the crew deeper, convinced a guardian called to him. The deeper you go, the more the story narrows. Less loot, more scratch marks, torches set close together like someone was afraid of the dark. Frostmere's layout stages the legend before it speaks. Narrow passages empty into a chamber with a shallow frozen pool and a Nordic pedestal in the center. A glass greatsword rests there, green in the torchlight. Runes on the walls reference an old warding, a watch set for something buried rather than treasure protected. If you pull the blade, the air cools, snow eddies along the floor, and a pale figure forms above the ice. She does not talk. She moves to reclaim what was taken. The pale lady fights like a guardian bound to one rule: recover the blade. She phases between positions, chills the room, and forces you to manage adds, Frostmere wraiths, while you watch the weapon state. In practical terms, there are two outcomes: keep the blade and defeat her, and the haunting stops because the guardian falls, or return the pale blade to its stand, and the spirit quiets without a kill, an old agreement reasserted by ritual. The evidence for both readings sits in Rajir's journal. Early entries describe dreams and a pull toward the crypt. Later pages dissolve into obsession with the sword. He isn't the first to hear it. Offerings clustered near the pedestal suggest previous keepers, and the fact that the spirit appears only when the blade is disturbed implies a pact older than banditry. Weapon in place, tomb at peace. If you choose to keep the sword, it carries the haunting outward. The pale blade is a leveled glass greatsword that deals frost damage and fear to lower-level foes. The enchantment fits the story. Cold that pushes enemies away, a memory of a spirit whose defense was distance. It's efficient against Draugr and bandits in mixed-level dungeons. It falls off against bosses who ignore fear. Returning it yields no item but closes the loop cleanly. The chamber warms by degrees. The wraiths disperse. Frostmere favors attention more than force. Oil slicks on the floor let you set a boundary with flame. Narrow stairs let you isolate wraiths for quick finishes. Pillars interrupt line attacks when the pale lady lunges. Light matters. Bright rooms hold her shape. Dark edges hide the next ad. If Isa survived your first encounter, she leaves with the site's lesson learned and no blade to tempt another crew. The myth holds because the space enforces it. A guardian appears when the vow is broken and departs when it's kept. You can end her by proof of strength, or you can end her by putting the sword back. Either way, Frostmere returns to quiet, and the blade's green shine belongs to the room that forged the rule. A bed can wake a war story. Sleep in the room at Old Hroldan Inn that locals call Tiber Septims, and a spectral soldier steps out of the dark, salutes, and mistakes you for Hjalti, the young name of the man who became the emperor. The place is ordinary until it isn't. The inn sits on the Karth stone road, smoke from the hearth, a bedroll in the corner, a rumor in the rafters. The innkeeper tells you the legend. Septim once camped here before he was a god to anyone, and the room still remembers. When you take the bed, the air cools. A ghost in battered mail stands at attention as if the campaign never ended. He greets you like a commander returned, voice certain, orders half-formed on his tongue. His request is simple and wrong with time. He wants Hjalti's sword, lost in a skirmish, taken by enemies who no longer hold a banner. The map points you to a nearby stronghold. The exact site varies, often a forsworn redoubt or a bandit camp carved into reachstone. There is no speech about destiny, no choir. You go because a soldier asked, and because the inn has made the past feel close enough to touch. The retrieval plays out like cleaning a page. Camps in the reach reward slow approach, sentries on spurs, horn posts on ledges, a hag or briarheart nested high. Work the edges, cut the alarms, take the high ground before you enter the main fire. The sword lies where loot gathers, on a table near a throne of bones, by a bedroll under a torn hide, or in a chest against a cliff wall. It is not enchanted, not grand, just a steel blade with a name, kept as a trophy by people who wouldn't know its history. Back at Old Hroldan, The ghost is still on his feet. You hand over the sword. For a moment he is a soldier reunited with his kit, then the years catch up. He thanks his general, rests at last, and fades. The weapon remains in your hands, ordinary again, a keepsake that says the errand happened. The inn returns to normal sound, pots, talk, the Karth outside, and the room keeps its title with a little more weight. What the encounter proves is neat and quiet. Skyrim doesn't ask you to prove Tiber Septim slept here. The behavior of the world makes the story credible. A bed is a trigger, a ghost is a witness, a common sword becomes a relic because someone who remembers it says it matters. There is no marker for what you changed in the province, only a room you can sleep in again without waking a watchman trapped in his last night. Mechanically it's small, one sleep, one retrieval, one return, but the framing turns a roadside inn into a time capsule. The reach keeps its quarrels, the river keeps moving, the inn's lamp keeps its circle. Inside that circle, a misremembered name, Hjalti, not emperor, pulls a soldier across the years. You do the decent thing and carry a blade back to where it belongs. The war is over. The habit of standing guard finally isn't. A jump can earn a benediction. Step onto the plank at Bard's Leap summit in the Reach. Drop into the pool far below, and when you surface, a dead bard appears on the rock, applauds, and grants a quiet boon to your voice. The sight hides above the Karthspire Valley, past forsworn camps and broken towers. A narrow path winds to a cliff ledge, where boards jut over a gorge. The river has carved a deep bowl directly beneath. Shallow edges ring it like a warning. Nothing marks the place except the view and the length of the fall. The setup reads as a dare long before anyone names it. The ritual has one condition: survive. Walk out to the last plank, face the water, and drop clean. The pool is deep enough in the center, drift, and you'll clip stone. The canyon keeps airtime long, so a short step is safer than a sprint. Hit true, and the impact thunders, bubbles roll, and the ledge above shrinks to a line against the sky. Climb to the flat rock at the pool's edge, and the specter materializes. Mail shirt, lute on the back, posture proud. He calls himself Azadal, the bard who missed the leap in life and kept the joke in death. His lines are simple, praise for nerve, a remark that the song is better with an ending, and a parting gift that lifts speech for you from then on. There is no shrine, no altar, no coin pouch, only the acknowledgement that courage can be a right and performance can be an answer. When he fades, the gorge is quiet again. The mechanics underline the story without forcing it. The blessing triggers only after a successful drop into the center pool. Climbing down does nothing, and a misaimed jump that scrapes rock earns no ghost. The approach is clear if you've cleared the forsworn, but their sentries make the plank tense. Arrows from the towers can turn the dare into a bad decision if you don't thin the ridge first. By design, the safest time to leap is when the stage is yours. Small details anchor the legend. The boards have knife marks where many feet tested the edge. The rock where Azadal stands is flat and dry even when mist hangs over the pool, like a built-in landing for a curtain call. If you return later, the place holds its shape. The jump still works, the water still receives you, and the ghost stays gone. His applause was for a first performance, not repeats. Compared to barrows and shrines, Bard's Leap is modest. No puzzle door, no boss, just a cliff, a pool, and a story that rewards nerve with voice. It fits Skyrim's quieter myths, events you complete by reading the space and doing the one thing the layout dares you to do. Take the plunge and a bard keeps his appointment. Walk away and the planks remain only wood over water, the applause unsounded. An entire town shares the same bad dream. Dawnstar wakes sick and angry each morning because a Daedric artifact is leaking fear from the hill above. The source sits in Nightcaller Temple, a ruined priory overlooking the bay. Inside, a priest in Dwemer robes introduces himself as Erandur. His story is the hinge. Once he was Casimir of the cult of Vermina, keeper of the skull of corruption, a staff that drinks sleeping minds and fires them back as weaponized nightmares. Years ago, the cult released a defense called the Miasma, freezing a massacre in place. Now the seal cracks, the skull stirs. The town feels the spill. The route to the artifact is a walk through suspended time. Hallways hold enemies mid-lunge until you pass the old gas vents. When the miasma thins, the cultists and orcs locked in that moment finish their fight as if the bell never stopped. Erandur guides you through blocked doors using memories the temple still answers, prayer wheels that turn hidden walls, a library passageway called by an old phrase, stairs down to a sanctum you can't brute force. At the core, the problem becomes clear. The skull rests on an altar between two towers, called Dreamstride and Vermina's Torpor. To reach the inner sanctum, you must drink the torpor, cross a dreamed version of the temple as Casimir, and pull a chain you can't reach in waking life. It is a mechanic in service of the theme. Sleep is passage, memory is key. When you return to your body, the way opens. Two former cultists, Thorek and Varen, arrive at the same time, accusing Erandur of betrayal. A pulse from the skull turns the room against you. When the clash ends, Erandur begins the sealing rite to bind the artifact for good. This is where the myth asks its price. You can let him finish and end the nightmares, or you can listen to Vermina's whisper, kill Erandur mid-prayer, and claim the skull. The object's behavior matches the story you choose. Destroyed, it ceases to poison Dawnstar. The town sleeps again, and the inn stops filling with complaints. Claimed, it becomes a staff that must be charged by casting Dreamsteel on sleeping targets. Each theft adds charges that fire as blasts of psychic damage. It grows on exploitation and invites you to make more sleepers into fuel. Either way, Dawnstar reacts without a speech. Relief replaces anger. The silence in the streets is the proof. Nightcaller's details keep the caution grounded. The shrine's iconography shows Vermina with open hands and closed eyes, promises in one, blindness in the other. The library stacks are full of records that reduce mercy to procedure. The miasma engines line corridors like incense burners built by engineers. Nothing here is a mere crypt trap. It is liturgy as design. The myth is simple to state and slow to forget. A Daedric prince of dreams leaves a weapon that feeds on sleep. A temple locks a disaster in amber. Years later, the seal fails, and a fishing town pays the cost until someone climbs the hill. End the ritual, and the bad nights stop. Keep the staff, and the lesson remains in your hands. Fear is easy to harvest when people trust the dark. A love story is carved into a tomb. Ansilvund stages the saga of Fjori and Holgeir, two lovers bound by verse and grave goods, then lets a living grief try to rewrite the ending. Stone tablets set the tone before any fight. At the entry and along the galleries, short stanzas tell the pair's courtship, duel, illness, and vow to meet again beyond the veil. The lines are plain and Old Nord simple. Names, oaths, a promise to rest together. Farther in, the decor changes, candles and clusters, fresh bedrolls, alchemy stains. A Redguard necromancer, Lua al-Skaven, has occupied the barrow and repurposed its dead. Her journals describe a husband lost to war and a plan to force the world to give him back. If the old story keeps two lovers together, she will steal its power. The barrow resists with puzzles instead of speeches. A collapsed hall reroutes you through burial shelves and bridgework over a shaft. An early stone door opens only when you match animal totems to glyphs, a clue written on a nearby corpse by raiders who got the order wrong. Draugr wake in measured waves, pairs from the flanks, an archer above, a warden with a frost shout on the landing. Nothing here is random, every room turns the page. Fjori and Holgeir appear as shades when you cross the inner threshold. They do not attack, they plead for rest. Words brief, tone steady, then fade as Lua's ritual pulls them back. The contrast is the point. The tomb honors a vow, the intruder hijacks it. Past their sarcophagi, the main chamber drops into view. A rectangular hall hung with bone talismans, an altar on a raised platform, and Draugr ranks posed like an audience. Lua's fight is grief weaponized. She opens by conjuring and reanimating, then hides behind pillars to heal while Draugr absorb your attention. Fire salts on her table hint at frost wards. Poisoned shelves explain the coatings on her knives. Line of sight breaks on the central stairs let you peel ads before you trade with her. Shouts, unrelenting force to clear the dais, marked for death to grind through her sustain, turn an uneven exchange into a paced one. When she falls, her last lines stick to the theme, hatred for a war that took a husband, certainty that the dead should answer to the living once. The room resets to the barrow's voice. Fjori and Holgeir's shades return, thank you, and finally depart together. On the altar, where Lua worked her rite, a translucent blade lies in their place, the ghost blade. Its edge hums faintly and cuts cleaner than steel, as if part of it still moves through the world the way a spirit does. Nearby, Lua's notes remain: dates, a husband's name, and a neat hand collapsing into cramped insistence. The myth keeps both truths in frame, love honored, love misused. Nothing in Ansilvund needs a bard to explain it. Poetry on stone tells the couple's story. The necromancer's journals tell hers. The layout choreographs the conflict until the room chooses an ending. Leave the barrow and the wind outside sounds ordinary again. Inside, verse and silence hold. The lovers keep their rest by their own words, and the draugr return to listening. A rune-carved axe holds a people's story. Wuthrad, Storm's Wrath, is the emblem of Ysgramor, the Atmaran founder who returns with his 500 companions, drives the snow elves from Skyrim, and leaves a weapon that still bites harder against elfkind. The mead hall in Whiterun keeps the flame. Jorvaskr stands like a longship beached on stone, its name taken from the vessel that carried the first companions across the Sea of Ghosts. Inside, warriors call their leader Harbinger, not Jarl. Oaths are to the circle, not a throne. The Skyforge burns behind the hall, older than the city, with Yorland Greymane at the anvil shaping steel as if it remembers older recipes. Every plank and title points backward to Ysgramor's voyage. The axe itself arrives as fragments in labor. In Dustman's cairn, a single shard is pried from draugr hands. Later searches recover more from barrows and caches that read like pilgrimage stops. The pieces go to Yorland, and old metal becomes whole again. Broadhead, grip wrapped for 2 hands, runes down the blade that glow when they catch torchlight. In the numbers it is strong but simple. In function it carries 1 extra rule. It deals bonus damage to elves. The statistic matches the saga. The tomb proves how an object can be a key and a verdict. Sail north to Ysgramor's tomb, a stone hall cut into an island cliff. A seated statue waits with its hands open. Place Wuthrad across the lap, and the inner doors answer. The weapon is recognized, and the Founder's Hall opens to descendants. Past the threshold, companions walk through a shaped history, statues, inscriptions, draugr that rise to test nerve rather than numbers. Shield siblings make the climb together, no hirelings, no outsiders. Within, the companions settle a debt the saga never wrote down. The current Harbinger's soul is caught between honor and the beast blood the circle carries. Fire is built, a rite is done, a wolf-spirited shade appears and falls. When the work is finished, the hall calms, and the exit wind feels like a sigh. Wuthrad returns to the statue for the way out, the same way it opened the door, tool and password at once. Elsewhere, the world keeps Ysgramor visible. Windhelm's Palace of the Kings stands under his statue. Sarthal's ruins remember the Night of Tears. Inns repeat the names of the 500 like a roster of saints. Even the shape of the companions' ranks preserves the myth. No uniforms, no banners, just a circle that takes contracts and calls vengeance justice when the job fits the code. Mechanically, the axe asks for discipline more than complexity. Two-handed timing, clean spacing, commitment to swings that don't cancel. Against elves, Falmer, Thalmor, wandering mages of Myr blood, it bites deeper and ends trades that steel alone would lose. Outside those matchups, it remains a symbol you can still win with, which is the point. The emblem remains practical. So the saga lands in present tense. A ship becomes a hall, a name becomes a rank, and an old blade still opens the Founder's door. In Skyrim, identity isn't only song, it's iron you can lift, an oath you can keep, and runes that still mean what they say. A ring that forces the change turns law into a hunt. Hircine's ring binds a werewolf without consent. Only the Lord of the Hunt can lift it, and he asks for payment in prey. Falkreath carries the rumor as grief. A child, Lavinia, daughter of Matthias and Indara, dies to a beast. In the jail below the Longhouse, a Nord named Sinding tells the missing piece. He is a werewolf who stole Hircine's ring to master his curse. Instead, the prince marked him. The ring now triggers random transformations. In panic, he killed. Sinding presses the band into your hand and begs you to take it to the prince. The metal bites your finger and proves his story. Fur and hunger surge at bad moments until the quest is decided. Hircine answers through quarry. A spectral white stag ranges the pines. When it falls, the aspect of Hircine appears in antlered form and names the price. Find Sinding in bloated man's grotto, where the blood moon shines at noon, and bring the hunt to a worthy close. The grotto changes for the right. Sky torn open above a forested bowl, fog-like breath, stone arches ringed with bones. Hunters wait on the ridges, steel and silver ready. Choice defines the myth. Stand with the hunters, corner Sinding among the red leaves, and kill him. Hircine arrives again, pleased, and offers Savior's hide, a light cuirass warded against magic and poison. Or turn on the hunters, cut them down one ridge at a time, and help Sinding survive until the grotto is clear. Mercy counts as law kept. The aspect returns, acknowledges a hunt well run, and cleanses the ring. The curse lifts. The band becomes the ring of Hircine, granting unlimited werewolf transformations on demand. Mechanics keep the code visible. The cursed ring overrides the normal cooldown and triggers at random, a liability in towns and caves alike. The cleansed ring restores control. Equip, transform, re-equip, no waiting. The grotto's layout teaches patience. Hunters call from ledges, set tripwires, post archers at choke points, pull them with line of sight, use elevation to split aggro, and watch for silver. Its bonus against beasts is the prince's other lesson, that prey has counters. Sinding's behavior supports either verdict. In conversation he is lucid, ashamed, and firm that the change rules him. In combat he fights with clean spacing and retreats to heal if given room. Spare him and he keeps his distance afterward, promising to run where he harms no one. Kill him and the cave stills at once. Hircine accepts both outcomes because the outcome isn't morality, it's completion. A worthy quarry was named, chased, and finished by tooth, blade, or pact. Falkreath reacts in small measures. Maethes returns to his field. Guards stop muttering about the beast in the pines. No herald announces the result. The artifact on your hand or the hide on your shoulders is the only record, the proof that a prince's law briefly touched a logging town. That is the bargain Skyrim restates with this story. Man and beast cannot be separated by wish, only by terms. Wear the ring and accept the cadence of the hunt. Refuse, and the change chooses for you. A bottle that is said to refill itself, for the worthy. The white phial promises endless relief, but the road to it measures devotion, not inventory space. The rumor has an address. In Windhelm, the alchemist Nurelion keeps a shop named for the phial he has chased his entire life. He recognizes a fragment in a book, a map in a margin, and sends you to Forsaken Cave to retrieve what legend calls an alchemical grail. The cave is ice and drift, Draugr in ranked niches, and a sealed inner chamber guarded by an ancient named Curelmill. Past him, on a pedestal cut with snowflake sigils, rests the phial, white glass, delicate scrollwork, stoppered with silver, and cracked. It goes into your hands whole enough to hold, not whole enough to keep its promise. Back in Windhelm, the myth meets a man's limits. Nurelion's disappointment is quiet. A lifetime of search ends with the right object in the wrong state. Days later, his apprentice, Quintus Navala, asks you to try again, this time with craft instead of luck. He has a method, but it needs 3 precise reagents: unmelting snow from the throat of the world, mammoth tusk powder, and a briar heart. Each is a test that fits the claim. Snow that refuses to thaw proves the bottle's cold name. Powder ground from an old titan's ivory anchor's potency. A briar heart, stolen from a warrior who replaced his own, stands in for life reclaimed. The errands play like small rites. At the mountain's crown the wind strips sound. You take the snow from a drift that never recedes. In the tundra you use a mortar at an old workbench to mill tusk to dust. In the Reach you cut a heart from a forsworn champion who has made himself part plant to keep fighting. None of it involves a stage speech. The pieces simply match the problem you're trying to solve. Mend something that should not mend. Quintus works in the back room while the city freezes outside the shutters. He sets the snow under the neck, wicks the briars red through a spiral, and dusts the seam with the powder you've ground. The crack seals, but not perfectly. The phial accepts an essence you choose: healing, magicka, stamina, a ward against magic, or a skill-leaning tonic. And from then on it refills once each day. No refills at a well, no soul gem charges. Time itself tops it off, a myth reduced to something you can actually use. The shop records the cost of that compromise. Neuralian fades, satisfied enough to have held proof even in failure. Quintus takes over with the humility of someone who knows the repair isn't pure. The object's limits feel intentional, not bugged. It will not become every potion at once. It will not refill on command. It does one thing reliably, forever, because the people who mended it did not pretend to be gods. In practice, the phial changes habits. A fighter sets it to health and counts on a guaranteed surge at the end of a long delve. A mage binds it to magicka and uses the day's one refill to bridge a dry fight. A traveler who hates ambushes keeps resist magic on tap and walks into tombs calmer. The bottle's value is rhythm, a small certain mercy in a game that usually asks for planning and luck. That is how Skyrim keeps the legend honest. The white phial exists. It is broken. It is repaired enough to matter, not enough to be a miracle. Devotion finds it, craft mends it, and restraint makes it worth carrying. A ghost rides the night roads and will let you follow. After dark, a headless horseman appears on Skyrim's highways, spectral blade at his hip, galloping in a straight, unhurried line toward an old grave. He does not speak, does not attack, and does not acknowledge you. He simply expects you to keep up. The sighting is simple to stage. Wait for full night and travel the main routes across the tundra. The rider flickers into view like moonlight on mail. Horse and man the same pallid blue as other honored dead. Arrows pass through. Shouts move air but not him. Guards look past as if the road is empty. If you lose him in the turns, he reappears another night and runs the route again, indifferent to weather, dragons or bandits who lunge at nothing. His destination is constant even if your starting point isn't. He aims for Hamvir's Rest, a low burial site in the Whiterun wilds, stone cairns, a central slab, weeds brave enough to grow between offerings. The rider slows at the edge, reins in without a head to see by, and halts before the grave. Then he fades. No dialogue fires, no quest begins. The world just leaves you standing in a place the living don't visit much. Hamvir's Rest behaves like the answer the rider refuses to say aloud. Skeletal guardians may stir as you approach. A restless mage sometimes keeps watch, warming his hands at a mean fire. Offerings sit on the stones as if someone came here once with intent. A chest can be pried open. There is no wall to teach a word, no shrine to bless you, no tidy inscription to fix the rider's name. The silence is the point, a legend that ends at the right address and declines to explain itself. The ghost's behavior matches the province's rules for honored dead. His colors and transparency match Whiterun's barrow shades and Sovngarde's warriors. He rides only at night. He ignores combat because his business is already finished. You can walk beside him, sprint ahead, or fall behind. He does not adjust. If wolves bay or a storm breaks, he moves through weather and noise unchanged, as if the road remembers a march older than the traffic on it. Theories will supply the rest. Some call him a decapitated champion searching for his cairn. Others tie him to a song and a headman's sword. The game withholds the verdict and gives you something better, a repeatable encounter that treats belief like a mechanic. See the rider, follow the line, arrive at the grave. If you never travel those roads at night, you will never meet him. If you do, the reward is the feeling that Skyrim keeps promises it never wrote down. So the myth stays tidy. A spectral rider crosses the plains until he reaches an unquiet rest. The living may keep him company to the gate. The dead finish the journey alone.